My oldest brother is adopted, all right? And probably the one thing that has bothered him all of his life is that he never knew who his biological parents were. He has been extremely disturbed by not being able to find this information out, and consequently finds out misinformation, and that screws him up even further. So we're going to talk about if you've made it past some doctor in the birthing room and you're born and you end up adopted, what happens to you then? We've got a couple of folks with us. Bill Pierce, who is president of the National Commission for Adoptions, Committee for Adoptions, is with us today. And also Carol Gustavson, who's a former adoptive parents for Open Records Incorporated.
Founder, yes.
Now, let me, you're the founder of that organization,
yes.
aren't you? Let me start with Bill. There are over 6 million adopted children in the U.S., Bill. Do you feel these children are entitled to know who their biological parents are?
So long as it's a mutual consent deal, if the mother wants to have a meeting and the kid wants to have a meeting, we believe that they should indeed have that information.
Why should the mother have any rights? She gave the kid away.
The reason she needs to have rights is that if she doesn't have those rights, the kid may never be born in the first place. And there's one thing, Mort, that's worse than not having the information that you need, and that's not being alive at all.
Well, but the point is, Bill, it seems to me that in this society of open information, a kid being born who's adopted should have the rights to know whether his parents had certain diseases, certain genetic deformities or
They can get all of that, Mort. There's no problem with that. And
They can? My brother hasn't been able to get them because he doesn't know who the hell his parents are.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know where he was adopted from, but if you have him contact us, we'll be glad to try and help him. We have helped other people. We have indeed helped other people.
Let me go. Joe, where's Joe?
Right here.
Joe, it's not Joel.
Joe.
Yeah, Joe,
Correct.
let me ask you, you want... Joe. You're a black market baby.
Yes.
You're a black market baby with no idea who your parents were.
That's
What's
absolutely right.
I
I have no idea what my heritage is, nor can I get it. I believe that every adoptee has the right to see the person that gave birth to them one time, and then they can negotiate whether they have a further relationship. Every other person in this room that's not adopted has the right to know where they came from. Why should adoptees be different? Joe? Yeah.
Let me go to Donald Humphrey. Donald's the counsel for the American Adoption Congress.
That's right, also an adoptee. I also represent Joe. Joe is the product of a fraudulent adoption. We've sued to get his birth records opened in New York State. The court said, no way, can't have them, because there's a statute in New York that says that on an adoption, the records are sealed and they can only be opened in the best interest of the child. In law, if something's fraudulent, it's void from the beginning.
Sure.
Court didn't buy it.
How much money was he sold for?
$5,000.
How much, Joe?
$5,000.
Oh,
it's not enough.
Christ, babe.
His price has gone up.
$5,000 that many years ago?
That many years ago, absolutely.
So you came from a wealthy family?
They scraped hard to pay that money, I can tell you. And
Do they know
no.
They know who your parents are?
No, because they were lied to, too. And my adoptive family supports my right, as does Carol Gustavson and other adoptive parents, to find out where I came from.
Bill, why don't you support that right?
We believe that in his case I mean, in terms of black market adoption, when someone is sold, it's like trying to find the records on who sold you a pound of cocaine. I mean, it's an illegal act. It's an illegal
I don't think that I'm like cocaine somehow.
It's an illegal act in the first place.
Bill, you know, time moves on after an adoption takes place. Time moves on, and the records that the agencies have on these birth families are not kept up to date for anybody to go back and get an accurate record to begin with.
That's not true. They are kept up to date.
They are not. You do not keep
are.
in touch with the birth parents.
Of course they do.
Over the years. Bill,
I've been in touch with a birth parent for 20 years.
What do you think? What do you think of? Let me ask you both you gentlemen a question. What do you think of a parent who knows, an adopting parent who knows who the parents of his adopted child is, and refuses to tell that adopted child, no matter how many years that adopted child asks?
I don't think they have that right. I don't think they have the right to do that, because I think the adoptee has the absolute right to know his heritage, to know his own identity.
and to take control of their own lives, because it was between the birth families and adoptive families that the contract was made with the agency to have the adoption take place. And by God, these kids grow up. They should not be denied the basic civil rights that other people have in this country to take control of their own life and make decisions as to whether they want to meet their...
Bill, in this day and age of AIDS, I ask, what if a child is born of an HIV parent, all right, and the child is adopted, and maybe the child doesn't show that HIV right away, but does later on in years, and all of a sudden you can't find out where the hell the kid came from? I mean, you got a real problem.
Look, we agree that every kid should have a right to their biological and medical and social history to find out what their nationality is, what the religion of their parents is, and all the rest of that. And we believe that once the kid is an adult, they should have the right, along with the birth mother, if they both agree to meet each other.
What if the birth mother doesn't agree? Can he still get those records?
No, he can't in most states, and we think that
that has to be changed.
We believe that that confidentiality works both ways. I can tell you horror stories, Mort, about people... Let me finish, huh? We believe that, you know, there are plenty of cases, I mean, the case right here in New Jersey, where these search groups went out and bribed, they got information, they stole it, they were selling it for $500 cash, and they were having people who had placed kids for adoption were going back and interfering in the lives of little kids and screwing them up in school. Now, I know you're getting ready to adopt a child, Mort, and I want to tell you one thing right now. I know how mad you get on this show. You would be damn furious if somebody that you had adopted a child from came back and screwed up your kid and started making that kid afraid he was going to be kidnapped and that sort of thing. And it happens. And we want absolute confidentiality so that while you're raising that child, you don't have to have looking over your shoulder that somebody's going to snatch your kid.
When the child is
From the
18.
age, I mean, that's got to be the exception, Bill, rather than the rule. And my child is going to know, who his biological mother and father was from day one.
I understand. I understand that, and this is the kind of adoption which you have arranged, and that's your right. And we believe that if people want to have that kind of adoption, that's fine. But Mort, there are some young women who have got to have confidentiality.
Bill's leaving out an important fact here, and that is that there are statutes involved. And what the statutes say, they're all written from, quote, the best interest of the child. They don't talk about the birth parents. They don't talk about the adoptive parents.
They do, too, talk about birth parents.
The records in New York are sealed supposedly in the best interest of the child forever, whether it's during minority or for the rest of that adoptee's life. The fact that Bill says there's a confidentiality in terms of the birth parent, that has nothing to do with it in terms of New York. The real fact of the matter is they're not sealed in the best interest of the child at all. They're sealed in the best interest of the adoptive parents because people like Bill pander to the fears of the adoptive parents that if the kids go and try and find their birth parents, they're going to leave their adoptive parents. It's not true. But people like Bill, who's a paid lobbyist for an adoptive parent organization, pander to that fear.
We represent...
Let me hear from Bill. Let me hear from Bill.
Look, we represent women who have placed kids for adoption and men who have placed kids for adoption and adopted people and adopted parents. We represent the whole schmear.
How many?
How many?
How many?
How many what? We represent 2,000 individuals. How many do you represent,
There are 6
Joe?
million adoptees in this country and 6 million birth mothers.
You got them on you got a list of them, buddy?
We're talking from what we feel.
Bill, you're not representing me, and you're not representing the people who belong to our group. Don't be so all-inclusive
Carol,
that you're
are you adopted?
I'm not adopted. I'm an adoptive parent.
You're an adopting
parent. We have supported all of our children in their searches, and they have met their birth families and have had reunions, and nobody has dropped dead or disintegrated over
Or
this.
run away from you.
Some of them work out. I'm not denying that at all. I'm not denying that at all.
But I don't like the fact that you are clumping people into this group of people that you're protecting. I don't want your protection.
So you don't. So don't join our organization.
Well, I haven't joined
so
your
don't join the organization.
But we've
That's
needed
a free
to
country. You don't
create
have to join.
another organization for adoptive parents who do not want to have this anonymity, who acknowledge birth families from the very beginnings of each adoption, who keep the birth families alive, and who support their children's feelings in allowing them to get them out and help them in their searches.
Let me ask you at home, do closed court records protect the parents' rights at the child's expense? We want the audience to join us in this next segment. Stay with us. Let's talk to a new guest that we have at home base with us now, Jill Bowen, who found her biological parents. Jill, you were adopted and found your biological parents 2 years ago, right?
Right.
What was that like, and has your reunion caused the kinds of problems that Bill claims that they would?
No, not at all. I was so thrilled to get a phone call in the middle of the night saying they had found my mother and she wanted to meet. We talked on the phone for like 3 hours and...
How old were you when that happened?
2 years ago, 23.
23 years old?
And
Did it make you think less of your own parents?
No, not at all. I had their support all along. And actually both my mothers have met and get along very well.
What about your father?
He's met my birth father. He hasn't met my birth mother because she's in Santa Fe.
All right, but you met your birth father also?
Uh-huh.
How do you get along with them?
Fine.
What do you think of them because they gave you up for adoption?
I'm very thankful my birth mother gave me up because she had no means to raise me.
So you ended up being a pretty happy young lady getting with Bill. There's a situation doesn't seem to have devastated anyone.
Some of them work out, some don't, Mort. This one worked out, and I'm very glad about it.
Don't you think most of them would work out? Don't you? Yes, ma'am.
But I think that's the whole point, that people should be allowed the choice whether to work them out or not, period. There should be no laws preventing them from doing that.
So
Why
you're
do we
saying
need
the
laws
child...
preventing people?
You're saying the child should have the opportunity.
I'm saying both parties should have the opportunity. Why should
What
there
if the
be laws to
biological
prevent
mother
people?
doesn't want to work it out and the child does?
The child never
Well,
had
what
a
about
voice
people
before.
that meet, and what about people that date for a while and one wants to get married and one doesn't? These are situations in life that people work
You don't
out
force
between
people to get
themselves.
married when one party doesn't want to, I can tell you that.
Excuse me?
You don't, you just said one part, you're dating
That's
one
right,
party.
but no one
dating.
stops them from
But you
dating.
don't force people to
but
get
no
married.
one stops them
But
from meeting and dating.
don't go into a search, contact, and reunion without tremendous sensitivity for the other person who's going to be on the
Well, I wouldn't
found
imagine
end
you
of it.
would, but I think the most important person here is the child.
Absolutely.
I think the
They're
child...
not children at that point,
They
Mort. We're
become
talking about
adults.
adults.
They grow up.
We're talking about adults. We're talking about
Let
a
me tell you
relationship between
something.
two adults.
I've talked to, I don't know the situation because I'm not adopted, but my brother is, all right? And I've talked to him for years. And yes, you are children. When you don't know who your biological parents are, you still suffer and wonder what the hell you've
And
done.
you don't grow up because they don't let you take control of your life.
The system certainly tries to keep us as children without letting us have our heritage.
Yes, the
and,
state
and
does.
seeing our parents. Absolutely. It
The
keeps
state
us
does.
as children.
You bet. I want to meet this young lady here. Your name is, what is your name?
My name is Anne Giello, and I'm a supervisor at Golden Cradle Adoption Agency, and I'm a birth mother who placed through the agency when Golden Cradle was with NCFA. They've since changed to Child Welfare League of America.
Speak up a little bit
I've
so our audience can hear.
pursued, and I'm in an open adoption. And I don't think you have any right for talking for birth parents unless you tell us if you're a birth father. You can't represent a group of people, just like I don't feel like I can represent an entire group of people. You know, birth mothers make a choice at a time and place, and I think an adoptee then, when they become an adult, also have a right to make a choice. To counteract that.
You know.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I believe it.
I just heard Mort ask the lawyer who was standing up there before whether he had herpes. I think he can represent that woman who needed a good lawyer without
When
having
she
to have
asked
herpes.
for representation, Bill,
And
but
we
birth
have-
mothers have
and
never
we have
asked for
birth
your
mothers who ask that.
representation, and we don't want your
That's not
representation.
true. Listen, we just had a meeting and we had someone from the American Adoption Congress who believed in search debating someone from our organization that didn't believe in search. We have people on both sides. You just don't want to agree to that, so?
But that doesn't mean because you have someone who doesn't want to search that the people who do want to search shouldn't be able to.
Look, it's a democracy,
Keeping
and
the
if you
records
if you
closed,
go,
Bill,
it's a
does not
democracy.
If it's a democracy, we should all have even rights.
we can get into this. We can get into this and never come up with an answer. You know who has them? On herpes, on transmitted diseases, on adoption. The American people, you. These folks here. We'll come back to you next.
Some of the guests of the Morton Downey Jr. show stay at the Meadowlands Hilton Hotel.